If you struggle with worry so much to the point that the constant thoughts about what's the worst that could happen stop you from doing anything, then this video is for you. I am someone who for years let those aspects of worry completely just ruin my life. And the thing is, what they cause is they cause a shrinking of your comfort zone and an increase in your worry. Because whenever we give in and we avoid the thing that the worry is telling us about, we feel a temporary relief, and it sends a signal to our brain that avoiding these things is good. And then what tends to happen is next time round, we won't just avoid the thing that scares us. Our comfort zone will shrink and will cause us to be in a position where the next thing that we want to avoid becomes smaller. I look at this with social situations. Was a big one for me when I was growing up, is that originally I hated doing things like phoning up to order a pizza. So I'd get a friend to do that. And in the short term, that felt really good because they're phoning up for the pizza. I'd offer to pay for it. They're getting something in return and everybody's happy, right? The problem is it went from I don't like to be able to phone up and order for the pizza to I can't. And then once I couldn't do that, my worry would start to look for something new that I couldn't do. For me, that became things like paying for petrol. Whenever there was the option to pay at the pump, I would pay at the pump rather than speak to a person. Self-service checkouts at supermarkets. Whenever there was the option to pay at one of those, I would do that rather than be around a person. And honestly, years ago, this led to a situation where I was able to do my job. I was able to speak to people in that capacity. I was able to speak on stages. This is one of the most mind-boggling parts. But I wasn't able to go to things like networking meetings. I wasn't able to talk to the parents outside of school whilst doing the pickup of my sons. You know, I'd go to clubs that I would take my sons to, and I'd just kind of sit there and be the person hiding in his phone on the corner. And these aren't like life or death situations. These are just things where I let that worry make me go, what's the worst that could happen? And in my head, the worst that could happen is people wouldn't want to talk to me, or they'd laugh at me. I'm not quite sure why they'd laugh at me, but in my head, our brains are fantastic storytellers, and they will tell you a version of events that utterly terrifies you. And the thing is, your brain, we think that our brain is there on its default mode. We think that our brain is there acting for us. And the way in which it acts for us is it wants us to stay familiar. It wants us to stay in comfort. It doesn't want us to experience new things in case those new things go wrong. And in keeping us safe, it unfortunately keeps us small. And the issue there with that is that this continues, and it will make you smaller and smaller and smaller until you go from not being able to do big things to not being able to do anything. And that's a pretty horrible place to be in. And so a few years back, I decided I wanted to finally challenge this to see what was on the other side of that worry. What was on the other side of this? What's the worst that could happen? And one of the ways that I dealt with this was by spending some time actually training myself to visualize what's the best that could happen. Like, what if this situation goes amazingly well? What if I get into that situation and I'm calm, I'm charming, I'm funny, and people love to talk to me? And what that did is those visualizations in our head, it's a little bit like when you watch a film, right? When you watch a film, when you watch a scary film, it makes you feel scared. When you watch a funny film, it hopefully makes you laugh. When you watch a romantic comedy, it might make you feel romantic. You get the idea. When we watch the negative film up here, the worst that could happen. It makes you feel like that's going to happen, and it makes you feel scared, and it makes you stay away. But when we feel and we watch the positive version of that film, when we look at those images, then at first it might not be as strong, but what it does is it makes you start feeling as if those good things are happening. And that can be enough to just get you going. But the next thing I did after that was I decided to go and face those situations. I decided to put myself in positions where I'm gradually doing more and more of those things. And the first time I actually did that, it was at a breathwork event about 3 or so years ago. And at this breathwork event, I wanted to speak to some of the people around me. We're all there for the same reason. We're all there for the same facilitator. We're all there. Everyone in that room was pretty much guaranteed to be pretty chill, pretty cool person. And I decided all I'm going to do, and this might sound tiny and even silly for a person who puts videos on YouTube, who stands on stages in front of hundreds, sometimes even more than 1,000 people. And I'm okay in that situation, but in this small talk situation, in that specific situation, I let worry run the show. And I wanted to talk to the person next to me. And I sat there for a good 5-10 minutes thinking, what do I do? What do I say? How do I do this? What if it all goes wrong? And I stuck in that, and I had to just take a breath and say, so what if it all goes wrong? So what if I say to this person, hi, my name's Dave, are you excited about the upcoming session? And they just look at me and go, what are you talking to me for? And that's, when we say it out loud, it's never going to happen, is it? So it was, instead of what if, so what if? And eventually, I finally talked to this guy. His name was Rich, and we had a bit of a conversation, and it was cool. And then right in front of me, just like that way from me, there was a group of people. A group of people is harder to talk to than a single person. A single person on their own looks easy to talk to. A group of people talking away, and they were talking about a podcast. And I thought, well, there's my in. And I just went, excuse me, sorry for interrupting, but did I just hear you say that you run a podcast? And it was a guy called Krish, and he was like, yeah, I do run a podcast called Tales to Inspire, and been going for about a year or so now. We share people's stories about like overcoming adversity, inspirational stories, that kind of thing. And that led to a really fantastic conversation. It also led to literally yesterday, before I was filming this video, going to one of his events where I met loads of other amazing people. But here's the thing, when we let worry run the show, we think it's going to keep us safe, but it doesn't. It keeps us small. And it is so important that if we ever want to grow, that we, to use the cliche, feel the fear and do it anyway. The fear isn't going to magically go away. The worry isn't going to magically go away. But by doing things, and then afterwards, immediately afterwards, saying to yourself, I'm proud of myself for doing that. It went well, and I was brave in that moment. Look, you might think, grown man, all he did was say hello to someone on the yoga mat next to me. And you know what? If I allowed myself to be the version of the story I tell about that's so what? I wouldn't go back to doing it. But instead, I tell myself the story of, that was difficult for me, and I'm proud of myself for doing it. Doesn't matter who else in the world it is or isn't difficult to. It was difficult to me, and I did it, and that's important. And that's what you need to do too. If you're letting worry run the show, pick the next thing. Something that is scary, but not terrifying. Accept the fact that it's okay that it scares you. Feel the fear and do it anyway. And then afterwards, immediately afterwards, big yourself up. Big yourself up massively. Tell yourself you're proud of yourself for doing it. Because just like each of those decisions to avoid made my comfort zone shrink, and will have done for you too over your life, each of those decisions helps your comfort zone to grow. And that is how we get into a position where fear is no longer running the show.